If all of a sudden you became famous, what would you do with the fame? Would you be good or bad? Well, this is your opportunity to find out. Hi, I'm Tom, and this is Adult Game Reviews. This week, I take a look at the Choose Your Own Adventure AVN, Good Girl Gone Bad by Eva Kiss. This is the first review of my channel where you have a female protagonist, but is it any good? Let's get into it. Good Girl Gone Bad follows the story of Ashley Graham, an ordinary girl. She has a boyfriend, she goes to college, she always has good grades in high school, but while she was pretty, many thought she was a bit plain. That is until her boyfriend decides to join some charitable organization like the Peace Corps and leave her alone for a few months. This is where the story really starts. You can decide to wait for your boyfriend, open up the relationship, or break up with him. This leads you to being introduced to celebrities and a new lifestyle you never thought possible. I played version 1.2, which I think is the last version. I purchased Good Girl Gone Bad through Eva Kiss's Patreon. Let's get into it. Let's start with the good. There's a good amount of replayability. For only taking up 1.6 gigabytes for the whole game, I was surprised when it took me longer to finish than I would have thought. I had a blast trying the different paths and seeing the consequences of your actions, whether positive or negative. Every action has a consequence for the most part, which I like. You get to see your character grow into the person you will eventually become. The character progression was some of the best I have seen in an AVN. You start and end looking like very different people, which is great from my perspective. So many AVNs, you are exactly the same all the way through. It was nice to see the character development in this one. And speaking of character development, I thought the story was great. I thought it was really engaging. I really enjoyed the choice that you have in the story, and I was pretty satisfied with the beginning, middle, and end. Another good thing is I loved all the little customizability choices. You get tattoos, piercings, clothes, and a car. You have some decisions that can have some major pros and cons. Like when you go on a photo shoot, do you stay in lingerie or do you allow the photographer to take more risque photos? Everything will count towards the good and bad moral system, which unlocks different dialogue options or choices. There's so many decisions to make that it was really hard to just pick one path and stick to it. And speaking of moral systems, the moral system was really simple but done well. It was a lot harder to stay on the good path than move further down the bad path. I was at one point completely even, 16 good and 16 bad, and tried to maintain that as much as possible because I really like playing the neutral path and being a dick, so I figured this would be fun. I ended up the game at 14 good and 36 bad. So yeah, really hard to not end up on the bad side. Next, there were a variety of flavors explored. You have a choice with most depending on what you're into. If you go down the open relationship path with your boyfriend, then there was a lot of NTR, but from a woman's perspective instead of a man's, which was really interesting. I actually liked that for the most part. It was different than anything I'd experienced in any AVN. Lastly, I was kind of turned off by the art style early on, but it grew on me as I kept playing the AVN. But you'll have to decide for yourself if it's something that you like. Okay, moving on to the bad. But before that, please like the video, and I wouldn't hate it if you subscribed. Thanks. Okay, so there aren't that many I can put into the bad section, but there was one I had to discuss. I really didn't like how they did the one trans woman in the game pretty dirty. The first interaction you have with them is either negative, very negative, or neutral. During the ending, they mentioned this person, so I must have made a choice early on that excluded them from my playthrough, so no idea if there's more to her story, but at first, the first interaction, yikes. Another negative is no sound effects. The music was fine. I honestly didn't mind this too much because I found the story so engaging, but I figured I would have to discuss it. Lastly, there are some decisions that didn't really matter. You were given options, but the game still chose the outcome for you. The times when these default answers came up, I always was a little disappointed. Okay, yeah, let's move on to the weird. The only real weird thing that I feel like I need to discuss is something very subjective. I played through the game and got a couple of slightly different endings. Each one, even though mostly positive for your character, just felt sad. They go through everyone, including what happens to your friends, your family, yourself, and for the most part, I just felt sad for a lot of them. If I thought that relatively happy ending was sad, I can only imagine the gut punch it would be if you had a more negative one. So I had a blast playing the game, but the ending kind of felt out of place, but maybe that's me. Overall, I absolutely loved my time with Good Girl Gone Bad. It was a refreshing take on a normal AVN. I've always been a fan of choose your own adventure games, but I thought Good Girl Gone Bad did this particularly well. I thought the moral system was well implemented, and I liked the main character quite a bit. I felt for her and a lot of the characters, which may have been why I felt sad at the ending. I'm looking forward to trying Eva Kiss's next game, Red String. If you're interested in supporting the channel, take a look at my Patreon in the description. Also, if you haven't seen my review of Come Home, you can check it out right here. Thanks again. Until next time.